The shimmering surface of the pool danced under the Florida sun. This is not a work of fiction. What you're about to hear is a true story, witnessed by hundreds, recorded in detail, and remembered as one of the darkest days in marine park history. It was a day when joy turned to chaos in the blink of an eye, when the line between trust and instinct was crossed and the consequences were irreversible. Jessica Radcliffe was more than an Ocean World Orlando trainer. She was a veteran with over 14 years of experience, known for her calm confidence and deep connection with the orcas she cared for. On that bright February afternoon, she walked onto the platform beside Cairo, a 12,000-pound apex predator cloaked in black and white beauty. To the audience, it was magic. To Jessica, it was the continuation of a relationship forged through years of discipline, trust, and respect. But beneath the surface, something else was moving, unseen, unspoken, unstoppable. And before the day was over, that bond would be tested in the most harrowing way imaginable. Stay with me until the end, because once you know what happened in those final minutes, you will never look at marine shows the same way again. And if you're new here, this is Animal Attack Archives, where we bring you real, unfiltered accounts of the world's most shocking encounters between humans and nature's deadliest predators. Hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the stories that need to be told. The stadium at Ocean World Orlando was alive with sound. The steady hum of voices, the rhythmic splash of water, the upbeat music pulsing through the speakers. The smell of salt water mixed with popcorn drifted through the air, settling over the crowded stands. Parents balanced trays of food while children leaned over the railings, eyes wide, eager for the first sign of the ocean giant below. Jessica stood at the platform's edge, the sunlight catching droplets still clinging to her wetsuit from the morning session. Every movement was measured, composed yet warm, the presence of someone entirely at ease in this space. A gentle smile crossed her face as she scanned the audience, then lowered her gaze to the water. Beneath the surface, Cairo moved in slow, deliberate circles. His dorsal fin cut a sharp silhouette, slicing the pool's surface like the keel of a ship. As he rose, his breath erupted in a misty plume, catching the light in 1,000 tiny prisms. Jessica extended a hand and, with practiced precision, he approached, nudging her palm with the tip of his rostrum. The crowd erupted in applause as Cairo responded to her first cue, slapping his tail against the water in a thunderous splash that drenched the front rows. Cameras flashed, children squealed, and for a moment, the illusion of harmony was complete. Jessica guided him through a sequence, a spy hop to eye the audience, a graceful breach that drew gasps from the upper tiers, and a long glide across the pool's breadth. The black and white arcs of his body were mesmerizing under the midday sun. But not every eye saw the same show. From the adjacent pool, a pair of trainers watched closely. Cairo's circles were tighter than usual, his pivots more abrupt, as though some invisible thread pulled him inward. Nothing overtly dangerous. Not yet. To the untrained, it was beauty in motion. To those who had spent years reading the subtle language of orcas, it was a note slightly out of tune. Jessica felt it too, a faint shift in the water's rhythm. She carried on, her signals crisp, her smile steady. The audience saw perfection. She saw possibility. What no one yet understood was that beneath the glittering surface, the current was already changing. Jessica had learned long ago that working with apex predators meant living in a constant state of awareness. Not fear, but an alertness that sat quietly in the background, ready to rise when the water changed. And now she could feel it. Cairo surfaced again, his great head lifting higher than the cue demanded, his exhale warm against her cheek. His dark eyes held her gaze for a fraction longer than usual, steady, unblinking, as though weighing something only he understood. "Good," she murmured softly, her voice just for him. Her hand moved in a familiar signal. He obeyed, but his movement was slower, heavier. The precision dulled. It wasn't resistance. It was something else. From the stands at Ocean World Orlando, laughter rang out as Cairo rolled lazily on his side, a move the audience took as playful. Parents leaned in to take photos. Children reached toward the spray. But at the trainer's platform, the atmosphere was different. A fellow trainer at the adjacent pool shifted uneasily, meeting the eyes of another. They didn't speak, but the message passed between them. Something's off. Jessica had seen this before in other whales. A subtle tightening in their path, a change in the cadence of their breath. The stillness before a storm. She adjusted her stance, boots braced at the pool's edge, every muscle tuned to the rhythm beneath her. The show continued, but to Jessica, each cue felt heavier. Cairo breached on signal, the crowd roaring as water rained down. But his re-entry was abrupt, the resulting swell stronger than she anticipated. He lingered close afterward, his massive body hovering just below the surface. Years of trust bound them together, and Jessica wasn't about to break that bond over a shift in mood. She had handled restless orcas before. She believed in the connection they had built through endless hours of training and care. Still, she could not ignore the way the water pressed differently against her legs, the way Cairo's movements pulled the focus toward her instead of the crowd. Her next signal was deliberate, her smile unwavering. Cairo responded with a shallow dive, reappearing directly in front of her, close enough that she could see the faint scars along his jawline from years past. For a brief moment, the world narrowed to just the two of them. No audience, no applause, only the deep, ancient presence in front of her. Somewhere deep inside, she felt the whisper of a thought she couldn't quite name. In less than a minute, that whisper would turn into a roar. The air above the pool at Ocean World Orlando shimmered in the heat. For the audience, nothing seemed amiss. Jessica lowered herself so her boots brushed the water's surface, the same final position she had taken hundreds of times before. Cairo floated before her, still and immense. Each rise and fall of his breath was like the slow pull of a tide. The sunlight turned his wet skin into a sculpture of black and white, every curve defined in sharp relief. Jessica extended her hand, palm open, offering the cue. His rostrum broke the surface, closing the space between them. She smiled, steady, practiced, leaning in just far enough to make contact. It happened in a blink. The shift from calm to violence was instantaneous. Without warning, Cairo surged upward, his jaws clamping around her arm and the fabric of her wetsuit in a crushing grip. The pool exploded into foam as his massive head twisted, dragging her into the depths with a force no human could resist. Gasps and startled laughter erupted from the stands, some still believing this was an elaborate trick. But the shouts from the trainers shattered that illusion. Whistles screamed through the stadium. Hands gestured frantically over the water. But the black and white giant was already gone beneath the surface, Jessica with him. Below, the world turned to chaos. Bubbles swirled in every direction as she fought to twist free. But Cairo's hold was unyielding. Her lungs burned. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. She kicked hard, straining for the light above. But just as it grew larger, warmer, he wrenched her down again. On the platform, trainers scrambled for poles, nets, anything that could bridge the gap between them. The smooth rhythm of the show had dissolved into frantic splashes and desperate orders. Seconds stretched painfully, each one heavier than the last. Cairo surfaced briefly, his immense head breaking through the white churn. But Jessica was nowhere in sight. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, the sound of fear replacing the earlier applause. Parents began pulling their children back, eyes fixed on the boiling water. Underneath, Jessica clawed at the water, reaching for the release strap on her waist. Cairo twisted sharply, a jolt tearing through her shoulder. Pain flared hot, stealing precious oxygen. She forced her mind to stay focused, not to panic. But the edges of her vision were already blurring. For a moment, his grip loosened. She pushed upward with everything she had, the sunlight expanding above her. But before she could break the surface, a shadow swept from below. His tail flared, his body arched, and in an instant, she was yanked back into the green-blue void. The line between trust and survival had vanished. And in this fight, there was room for only one. The first drag into the depths stole the breath from Jessica's lungs. Cold swallowed her whole. The muffled roar of the crowd above faded into an eerie silence, broken only by the rush of water past her ears. Cairo's grip was relentless, his massive head twisting her sideways, as if to remind her who controlled the space between life and air. She kicked hard, each stroke straining against the drag of his bulk. Her fingers brushed against the strap at her waist, desperate for any chance to free herself. But Cairo shifted again, his jaw tightening, forcing her to arch painfully backward. A sharp flare of pain shot through her shoulder, the kind that demanded a scream she couldn't give underwater. Up above at Ocean World Orlando, the trainers shouted to each other over the piercing blasts of their whistles. A long-handled safety pole stabbed toward the swirling water, but the black and white mass slipped away just before it could connect. Nets slapped against the surface, folding uselessly against the surge of his movements. Jessica caught a glimpse of light, a trembling patch of gold far overhead. She lunged for it, muscles screaming, lungs searing with the need to breathe. She was almost there. Then the shadow returned. Cairo rose from below, his immense body curling upward. With a single sweep of his tail, the water spun around her in a dizzying spiral. Her upward momentum stopped dead. She tumbled, disoriented, as the world turned green and blue in rapid, nauseating flashes. He yanked her deeper, the surface shrinking above them like a fading star. In those moments, time warped. The crowd was gone. The trainers' whistles and commands vanished into the crushing quiet. It was only her and him. She tried another tactic. Her hand pressed firmly against the smooth curve of his rostrum, the same gesture that had calmed him countless times before. For an instant, she thought she saw recognition flicker in his dark eye, the echo of years spent working together. But the flicker vanished. The predator remained. Her limbs grew heavy. The need for air transformed from discomfort into agony. Her body screamed to inhale, no matter what filled her lungs. She clamped her mouth shut, every fiber of her being refusing to give in. On the surface, the stadium had transformed. The playful excitement of minutes earlier was gone, replaced by stunned silence, punctuated by frantic motion. Parents held children close, shielding their faces. Others froze in their seats, unable to look away from the violent churn near the center of the pool. A thin ribbon of red unfurled beneath the surface, carried outward in delicate threads that dissolved almost as soon as they appeared. Trainers at the edge leaned dangerously close, calling her name, voices cracking with urgency. But Cairo did not yield. Jessica's vision narrowed. The edges went dark. Somewhere in the distance, the sunlight still shimmered, but it felt impossibly far. She kicked one last time, forcing her body upward in a final surge of will. For a heartbeat, she broke free of the drag, the water easing around her. And then the pull returned, sudden, violent, absolute. Cairo dove sharply, taking her with him into the shadow deep where light could not follow. The audience didn't cheer. They didn't speak. They simply stared at the water, knowing that whatever was unfolding beneath that glittering surface was no longer a performance. It was a battle, and it was slipping away. The surface of the pool at Ocean World Orlando stilled for the briefest moment, as if the water itself was holding its breath. The sunlight shimmered across it, a deceptive mirror masking the chaos beneath. Then a surge broke the stillness. Cairo rose, his massive head cutting through the glare, water cascading down his sleek frame. Beneath him, the shadow of Jessica's body swayed with the rhythm of his movement, tethered, unmoving, yet still just beyond reach. A trainer crouched low on the platform, voice trembling as he called her name. Another gestured frantically toward the holding gates, signaling for an emergency separation. But Cairo did not turn. He hovered for a heartbeat longer, then dipped silently beneath the surface again, carrying her down. A collective realization rippled through the stands. Parents pulled their children close, shielding their eyes. Some stumbled toward the exits, others froze, their gaze locked on the spot where she had vanished. The sharp edge of panic gave way to something heavier, a suffocating stillness that settled over every seat, every breath. From the upper rows, the water looked impossibly calm. But near the center, its color deepened, a faint swirl of crimson blooming and dissolving into the blue. The contrast was unbearable. The brilliance of the Florida sun overhead, the cold shadow lurking below. A few cameras kept recording, the quiet mechanical hum obscene against the weight of the moment. Those who dared to keep watching knew they were witnessing something that could never be undone. The whistles softened. The shouts grew less urgent, not out of surrender, but from the aching recognition that the line had been crossed, and there was no pulling it back. The stadium, moments ago a place of spectacle, had become something else entirely. Not a stage, not even a battlefield. It was now a place of loss, and the silence it held would echo far beyond these walls.